are going to look at genealogy. I am Monica, museum technician at the Craigleith Heritage Depot, and this is my mom.
Hello.
And we are going to fill out a family tree today in honor of Mother's Day, focusing on my maternal family, so my mom's side of the family. And we're going to look at the genealogy, so we're going to create a simple family tree. Okay, so here we are with our chart. My mother and I are going to fill out a family tree today. We're going to focus on my maternal grandparents. So my mother's, starting with my mother's parents over here. And so my grandparents. And then we're going to fill out the rest of the chart. You can fill up to 3 generations. So I found this chart on Excel. You don't have to sign up for any programs or download anything onto your computer. If you're already using Windows, this should be available to you. It's a template on Excel called the Family Tree Generator. And today, Mom and I are going to fill it out together. So this template is a descendants chart. You can also do an ancestry chart. The difference is you start with one member of the family, and with the descendants chart you're working your way down the generations, and with an ancestry chart you would be working up. So you would go to, we would be looking at, instead of my grandparents, we would be looking at my great-grandparents, so my grandparents' parents, and onwards. But today we're going to look at a descendants chart, so it's going to start with my mom's parents, go on to my mom's sisters and brothers, myself and my cousins, and then their children. Okay, Mom, so we're going to start with my grandparents, or your parents.
Okay.
And so let's do Grandpa's name. So what we're doing here is we're filling out the grandparents, so the husband and the wife.
We're just doing first names, right?
And it's Anthony and Stephanie.
Oh, Stefania.
Oh, it's Stefania.
Use pencil.
So they use pencil to fill it out first in case you make some mistakes. I had a good chat with one of my cousins last night to try and figure out what order us second generations come in. That was a fun conversation. But here, so we have a second spouse. So on this generator it says, for multiple marriages or spouses, enter the same child's name on a separate row. Or in this case, we're entering the grandparent's name on a separate row. And so Stefania passed when my mom was young. And
had a girlfriend.
And
And my dad had a girlfriend after my mom died several years.
Yeah. So Mom's dad had a girlfriend for several years after she passed, after Stefania passed, and they ended up having a child together. So that's why we are including it in our family tree generator here. So what we're going to do is we start with the oldest child first and work our way down. We're going to go chronologically in each column. So the oldest, so my mom had 10 brothers and sisters.
No, 9.
Oh, 9 brothers and sisters, sorry.
There were 10 kids.
So 10 kids altogether. And her oldest sister is Victoria. And she married a guy named Jim, or James as we're putting it down.
And we're just doing first names.
And we're just doing first names right now. We're keeping it very simple. This is just to give you an idea of where to start, possibly. And this is just giving us a general idea of how we may lay out a more fancy chart in the future.
Kathy's second.
So my mom thought that her brother Stephen was... No, I thought her brother Stephen was second. She's correcting me. Kathy, her sister Kathy is second, or Catherine. We don't know the father of Catherine's child, so we're just going to put a question mark. Again, we're just keeping it really simple. I was stuck with biological relations, so I've left out step kids. We have one adoptee in here. Unfortunately, the generator doesn't allow for parent field to be filled in for adoptees. Maybe you can figure out a way around that, but when I tried to fill it in the computer, it gave me an error message. So we're working around it. Okay, so next comes Stephen, my Uncle Steve, or Stefan. Again, it's that Polish ancestry. We're getting some Polish names in here. And he married a woman named Ora. And next in line, oh, you know what we're forgetting to do? We're forgetting to fill out the parents, but let's just do initials, so A and S, just to make it quicker here. And this helps you keep track of who the parents were. So as you saw with the grandparents, we have two sets of two couples here with the same man, and so this row will help us keep track of which children he fathered with who. And so we've got Jane. So Jane is my mom, and she's a first generation child of my grandparents, of course.
And first one born in Canada.
And the first one born in Canada, that's right. So as my mom's parents were leaving Europe from the war, they traveled across
To England.
to England. Okay, it's helping out here.
Okay,
And
they were in Scotland.
so they had a kid in England.
They had three.
They had 3 kids in England.
Yeah.
One in Scotland, I thought.
Oh, two in England and one in Scotland.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go. So, and then they hopped over the pond and came and had my mom in Canada. So she's the first one born in Canada.
And then there's Mary.
And then her younger sister Mary. And this is where we're going to double up, or actually triple up on a child here, as it had suggested for multiple marriages to enter the same child's name on a separate row. So Mary originally married Gary, and then they separated. And we're not sure of the name of the second guy. So with Catherine and my Aunt Kathy and my Aunt Mary, this is something where we can go to them, especially since they're still alive, and actually ask them who their partners' names were, so we can fill out our chart completely. So this is, we're just leaving a space to fill this out later, and that's some research or investigation you can do with your family, your own family, is ask questions. So, and then she had her last child with a man named Alan. And then we move on to your next brother. So we got a bunch of girls here. One's Stephen, and next is John. Okay.
Yeah, John.
I'm saying too much, I feel.
No.
So John and Diane. He married a woman named Diane, my Aunt Diane.
And there's Greg. And Fran.
And then, so 2 brothers follow Mary. It's John and Greg. And Greg married Frances.
Is it with an I or an S? And I'm not sure of spelling sometimes, so you can go back and check on spelling.
Yeah, that's why we're doing pencil as well, yeah. And if you put it in the computer, you can always change it.
And then there's Susan.
So our youngest girl of the family, of the 9 brothers and sisters of my mom, so of the 10 children, Susan's the youngest girl. She married a man named Robert. Then there's Peter. Peter is the youngest of Stefania's children. And he married Barbara. And then the last child is Craig. And Craig's mom is Margaret. And Craig married Heather. So here we're going to put A and M instead of S. All right. So my turn to fill out some of the chart here. Now we're going to go again chronologically. I originally wanted to write all the children of the top and go kind of in the order of, you know, all of Victoria and James's kids first, and then all of Catherine. But the way it works is actually to do it chronologically. So the first child born, and from there on. So our oldest cousin, or second generation child, is Jessie. Maybe I'll get you to write it in. I think you have nicer writing than I do.
Okay, I'll try.
Mom's fixing my printing because I got ugly printing today.
Okay. And his spouse is Lisa.
And his spouse is Lisa.
I don't know their parents' names.
And so Jesse was adopted by my uncle Stephen, or my mother's brother, Stephen, and legally adopted. But again, as I mentioned in the Excel sheet on the computer, it won't let you enter adoptive parents. But here we can just write it. So
Aura.
It would be, well, yeah, Aura is his biological parent. So we'll just put Aura here. But Stephen was legally his father. The next in line is Antonia. We call her Tony.
She's married to Hiroshi.
And she's married to Hiroshi.
And their parents are
So we have some Japanese coming into our Polish family
here.
here.
Her dad either, so we'll just put.
Right. So as Mom's saying,
just put Kathy.
We'll put Catherine.
I'll just put a C
because we're not sure of we're not sure of the father at this point, or at least we don't know the name. I will ask Tony at some point. So next is
Benjamin.
Benjamin. You can just put Ben.
Ben?
Yeah, if you want. No. Benjamin.
Vicky wanted him to be called Benjamin when he was born.
Oh, she doesn't like the Ben and
but they call him Ben as they get older.
And he doesn't have a legal spouse right now and no kids, so we're just going to put his parents in there. So his parents are Vicky and James. So the V and the J over here. Next is, I thought it was, see, I always thought
Craig.
Ben was older than Tony, but Tony's older than Ben.
Okay, and then there's Craig. Craig's after Benjamin.
No, Craig's over here, Mom.
Oh, Craig's over
Craig's
here.
your brother.
Right.
But, so we should mention that, though, because Craig and Tony are very close in age. And you don't really get that with most families unless you have a large family where you can kind of get that crossover happening. so we do sometimes get Craig mixed up as a cousin instead of a brother.
And that he's the uncle of, even though they're like 6 months apart.
Right. So 6 month older uncle than his niece, which is kind of fun.
Oh, she's older than him.
Oh, she's older than him.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 months.
I think she's 6 months older than him, but he's her uncle.
So a younger uncle.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, there you go.
And then he'd be the uncle, and he's like a year younger than him.
Right.
So that makes it funny. Okay, so then we got Ben. So now Alexis.
Alexis. So Alexis is Ben's sister, and she married a man named Kelly. I can at least fill that out.
And that'd be Vicky
And they are Vicky and Jim again. That's Alexis's parents. Next, Aurora. You can do that. Aurora married a man named Matt. And she is Stephen's and Aurora's daughter.
Okay, now there's Anastasia.
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 You don't know how many times I have to stop myself from putting 2 N's in Anna for her.
And her husband, her
The man she had a baby with was Jason.
They weren't married, though.
No, they weren't married, but they have a biological son. So, and she is the daughter of Mary and Gary.
Then there's Monica.
And then there's me. And so my mom goes by Elizabeth because that's her second name, but her first name is Jane. So I am Jane and David's daughter.
JD.
Okay, so after me, my cousin Stephanie was born.
And Simon's her husband.
So you can imagine our family gatherings. We are going to fill all the way down. I'm going to have to move the camera forward so you can see the edge of the paper. But a lot of the times for your more important holidays, we do all get together as much as we can. And they are large functions. A lot of fun. So Anthony was after Stephanie. Stephanie married Simon. And she's the daughter of Susan and Robert. Anthony is Mary and Gary again. So Anthony is Anastasia's brother.
John and Diane.
And then we next have Michael.
I'm used to doing it by family.
John and Diane's. I'm used to doing it by family too. I mentioned that earlier, that you're tempted to go just straight down from the people you listed here and just list all their kids in a row, but this is chronological.
From the oldest to the youngest,
so
right?
The oldest cousin to the youngest cousin.
Makes it a bit confusing.
It made it a challenge. So we do have, I'll admit, a bit of a cheat sheet that I created ahead of time.
Because I would remember.
Because we can't retain all this information ourselves.
Okay, so
we just know that we love them all.
So there's Stephanie, then Anthony, then Michael, then Genevieve, then Natalie, and then James.
Yes. And so who we got here? We got Stephanie and Genevieve and James are siblings, and then Anna and Anthony and Natalie are siblings. They've got one more common. No, two more common. So John. Is John next?
Alice.
Oh, Alice. Okay. Alice. So Alice, the first of Greg and Francis's kids. So she's the oldest of their children.
I'll put GR for Greg.
Sure.
Because then you'll think it's Gary's.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I would advise, instead of using initials, you actually fill out the entire name, but just to save time, we're just doing initials today. So then Jonathan is next.
Jonathan, who is Mary's son.
Mary's son, and my mother and I aren't sure of his father's name, so we're going to put a question mark and ask later.
And then there's Alexandra. And that's John and Diane.
John and Diane's kid again is Alexandra, their first girl. So Michael's sister.
And then there's Libby.
And then Libby is the first of Peter's kids.
Peter and Barb. And Brandon.
And then Brandon. Brandon's the last of John and Diane's children. So there's Michael, Alexandra, and Brandon.
And then there's Mallory, which is Libby's. Libby and Mallory, they're Pete and Barb's girls.
So then there's Mallory and Madeline. Mallory and Madeline were born
A week apart.
close, a week apart in the same summer. So I don't know about everybody else, but it took me a good couple summers to get their names straight. Now it's just Maddie and Mallory. Mal and Maddie.
There, Greg and friend. Mally and Mallory. Okay, Mallory.
And then Christina.
Christina's the last.
Yeah, go ahead.
Christina's the last one of Mary's children. Marianne. If you can keep track of that.
If you can keep track of all these kids. So it started with Anastasia, Anthony, Natalie, Jonathan, and Christina are all Mary's kids. So the youngest of Greg's kids
It's Graham.
is Graham.
These two.
So our cheat sheet cut off the last two, but they are just as important as everybody else, and they are Craig's children. So Craig and Heather. So they are descendants of Margaret and Anthony. So Greer, she was the firstborn to Craig and Heather, and then Marin.
Oh, and Libby just recently got married, so should we put Richard in there?
Sure. So Libby just got married a year or two ago, and so Richard is her new husband. They don't have any kids yet. So let's get into the kids. So the second generation. So we have our grandparents here. First generation, which is my mother. So this is my mom's parents, but my grandparents. First generation, so my mom. Second generation, me. And then we're going on to the third generation. So my cousin's children. I don't have any yet, so we're not going to put those in.
So the oldest is Taylor.
So the oldest is Taylor.
Y-L-O-R.
And she is Jessie
And Lisa's.
and Lisa's.
Oh, yeah, Lisa.
And then Owen.
Yeah, who's their son?
Owen's their second child, and he's their son. And then next,
Jaden.
Jaden.
That's Anna's.
And that's Anna's boy.
Anastasia.
Anastasia, that she had with a man named Jason, who she's no longer with.
Jackson.
And then Jackson. It belongs to Antonia and Hiroshi. And then next is Isabel.
I-S-A-B-E-L.
Isabel. And then Logan are on the West Coast, so we don't get to see them as often as we do our other cousins.
That's Alex. Alexis and Kelly.
So that's Alexis
And Kelly.
and Kelly. I'm going to put A-L for Alexis and Kelly.
And then there's Carter.
We'd love to see them more, but, you know, distance. Carter. So Carter is Antonia and Hiroshi's second child. I should probably put an A-N for Antonia. And then Kate. Kate is
Stephanie and Simon.
Stephanie and Simon's first child.
And William.
And then William
It's Aurora Matthews.
is Aurora and Matthew's first child.
And then Charlie.
And then Charlie is our latest arrival, and he is Simon and Stephanie's as well.
Oh.
And there's our completed family tree. So once you've completed and filled it out, make note of where you've put your question marks here, and make note of, you know, who to go back and ask, some investigation to do, some research. And that can just be as simple as asking your family members. With this generator on the Excel, on the computer, you can also click this Create Family Tree button, and it will actually map out more of a diagram of a tree and how your branches spread out. It doesn't actually look like a tree, but I'll show you in another shot. So I had mentioned that I was going to show you our family tree once you click that Create Family Tree button in the Excel spreadsheet. It will automatically generate a chart for you based on the information you put into the spreadsheet. So this is our chart here that we filled out earlier. So this is the grandparents, so Anthony and Stefania. This is the first generation of children. This is the second generation of children, and this is the third. So this is my grandparents, or my mom's parents. This is my mom, and this is me, or at least our generations. So she's first generation, I'm second generation. And so I'll give you a pan scan of this large family tree. And so that's just an idea of the different styles that you can create your family tree or chart in. The Craigleith Heritage Depot is a branch of the Blue Mountains Public Library, and we have a archives and research room where you can find a lot of genealogical resources that you might not be able to find online. A lot of local information if you're looking to do more research and dig deeper. But we also have a lot of resources online as well. So if you want to go to www.thebluemountainslibrary.ca, then go to Books and More, our virtual branch, and then Genealogy, and you'll be able to find some great resources if you'd like to do family research of your own. Thank you, Mom, and happy Mother's Day.